Some people work a job. Others follow a calling. It's not about money, status, or titles. It's about that thing inside you that won't let go. That internal voice pushing you to do something bigger, something that matters. That voice belongs to teachers, first responders, doctors, nurses, military. People who wake up every day driven by passion, purpose, and the need to make a difference. I'm Stephen Kelly, actor, writer, filmmaker, and published author. It's about the conversation, the journey. It's about having a calling and how to answer it. So raise a glass and let's get after it. Calling isn't about money or fame. It's about purpose. It's about waking up every day knowing you're going to do what you're meant to and making a difference. Today we meet a man that followed that calling into the heart of fire, chaos, and brotherhood, Jim McGlynn.
See, to me, what's really interesting about your story, Jim, is the fact, like, when we were in high school, like a lot of friends that you know that I know that were my grade, they went out of high school, like in PD, in the police department, or went directly into fire. Was it at 21 at that point? Could you go in directly out of high school?
You could get on at the time. You can get either job at 21. Yeah.
Okay. So you had to wait. The PD guys, I think, could get on at 18. I believe so.
Yeah. Right. I think you're right.
Yeah. So your story is interesting because your calling came later.
Yeah, well, there's no, and I was concerned about that because I think I was 29 or 30 by the time I got on. I'm going like, okay, so I'm going to be going through probie school, as I call it, as a 30-year-old man, not as a 21-year-old man. And I thought, okay, I hope I can handle this. I hope I can keep up with these kids, But, it all worked out, and so we're glad it did. I mean, it was, I think also it was kind of like, and I hate to say it, but there's there was a blue collar bias that if you went to college back then, you didn't become a cop or a fireman.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that you looked at. And so, you were looking at other things. But little by little, I just said, these firemen, they seem to enjoy their lives. They have, like I said, a good work balance.
Yeah.
They have, and I see a lot of these guys who, are working in the private sector, and, their whole life was just about their job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they didn't necessarily seem happy. They didn't seem like they enjoyed it. Whereas most of the firemen I saw really enjoyed their job. And, that's important, obviously. Important.
Yeah.
You want to enjoy what you're doing. It becomes part of who you are.
You used the word calling. This was a calling for you. I find that to be just fascinating, outstanding, heroic. You're clearly not doing it for the money. I mean, there is money there, but the things that you do, the way you guys rinse and repeat, saving people's lives, we as a layperson, if you were to come into my house and do a procedure on me, or my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, I would remember you. I would remember your face. And I just want to tell you, man, what you've done is just extraordinary.
It requires that you have to apply yourself and you have to learn your job. But the rewards, I remember a guy, one of my lieutenants said, "Just the more you put into this job, the better, the more you'll like it. Apply yourself, learn your job, be good at your job, and it's the most rewarding job you can ever have." There was a guy at the just hospital the other day. I had a cap on FDNY, and he said his son just got on the job, and I said he's going to love it. He's going to because the people you meet, the friendships you make, it's like no other job.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, like I mean, when you retire, okay, no, you're still going back to functions, you're still going back and the camaraderie, and you're still socializing, and and the job changes you. The job changes it because what happens to you as a person is you no longer think of yourself. You're much more thinking of the big picture. You're not thinking of yourself. Like if you drive home, like driving home, and there's a car accident. The average citizen just okay, I gotta get home. The average fireman is probably going to take a look, pull his car over, stop and check, and go, okay, is everybody okay? Is there anything I can do? Off duty or on duty? Yeah. And that's what happens. You become, my brother Richie kidded me once or twice. We were somewhere, I think it was the Yankee game, and there was some kind of a medical issue with some problem, and he just, he saw me looking to see, okay, because you're looking to see if there's something you can do, and he just kind of, hey, Boy Scouts, yeah, It's a great job, and you're gonna make the best friends, and there is danger involved. Clearly, it's a dangerous job. You have to factor that in. Yeah, but that's what happens to you in this job. You're not an individual anymore. Yeah. You're part of a bigger family, and that you take that with you for the rest of your life.
Before Jim was a firefighter, before he led men into burning buildings, he was just a kid in the Bronx, a place where toughness was expected, but family and community meant everything.
So we're both Irish. My father immigrated to America in the 50s. My mom was born here in America. What about your family?
My grandparents on my father's side were both born in Ireland. They emigrated here, and I believe it was around 1908.
Wow.
In Ireland, oddly enough, they lived right next door to each other on a farm. Adjacent to each other, and we've actually gone back there a couple of times now and retraced the history. It's great to do. It's very rewarding, and you see the humble beginnings where people came from, because no hot and cold running water, no plumbing, no plumb, that kind of stuff. So it was they both emigrated here and had 7. And my mom's family actually was here earlier. She has English as well as Irish blood. Oddly enough, what I found out recently was my mom's maiden name is Stokes, Stokes. So through genealogy, the internet, all this kind of stuff, it actually was an article in the New York Times. My mom's great grandfather or something, I'm not sure how far back you go, was the inventor of the Stokes stretcher. And my mother tells me this, I'm going like, what? And she goes, have you heard of it? And I said, it's a tool that's on every fire truck in the country.
No way.
Yeah, so that was, I never realized that, but yeah, so that was a moment, yeah.
Wow. So, what are your memories of growing up in the Bronx?
It was a tough neighborhood. There's no question about it. But it was a good neighborhood. You didn't worry about crime. You didn't worry about, anything. I tell people just you didn't lock your doors. We lived on the 5th floor walk up, And when my father took my mother shopping, and to give you an example how safe you felt, the food packages were left in the back seat of the car. At this point, I guess it was a little too much. So one of your jobs coming home was if you saw the car, you had to look in the car and see if there was, and you hadn't carried the packages up. So,
Yeah. Wow.
and it was, it was a great neighborhood. It's some really, really close friends. But at the same time, it was a tough neighborhood. Yeah.
Jim's first passion wasn't being a fireman. It was teaching, where I met him. Coaching young athletes, mentoring students, helping shape futures. But even as he stood in the classroom, something inside him pulled him toward a different path.
You were my high school swim coach. Your younger brother, Richie, was in my grade. Older brother, Billy, was, I think, 2 years older than us.
Well, he was a junior.
Yeah. So what was it like being a student at Battalion High School in the Bronx, going to college, and then coming back to teach?
It was an interesting experience. Welcome Back Carter comes to mind, where a guy comes back and he teaches in his old neighborhood, and it was certainly unique because obviously I taught my brother Billy and I coached my brother Richie.
Yeah.
So but it was overall it was a great experience.
Okay. Because I remember running across you. We'd see each other over the summer, like either the Hamptons or down in the bars in the Bronx.
Rockaway.
Yeah, Rockaway. There we go. And we would see you, and we would call you Mr. McGlynn.
Uh-huh.
We would never call, even after high school, we'd run across you. We would never call you Jim. It was always Mr. McGlynn.
Well, it was, and I appreciate it. It was respectful, but you did get some looks. I'm like, who?
Yeah.
Why are you calling him Mr. McGlynn? So yeah, it was unique in that regard. Yeah, but yeah.
What did your parents do for a living?
My father was a policeman.
Okay.
My mom basically was a stay-at-home mom until later on, and she worked in the senior citizens home up the block before we lived.
Did you ever think of going into the police department?
My father told me that he says it's a very difficult job, and and he explained to me that and this is going back obviously 50 years ago. Every time you try to do your job, you're questioned. Everything, did you do this? Did you do it? And he just explained how difficult it is to really do the job. And I can't imagine what's like that.
And your uncles were also firemen.
I had 3 uncles who were firemen. And like I said, whenever you saw them at family functions, they seemed to have a good balance. They seemed like they were happy. They seemed like they were content in their jobs. And, that struck a chord.
Where were they stationed?
In the Bronx, and one was in Washington, D.C.
Okay, no kidding.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so I want to ask you a few questions about Battalion. What did you teach at Battalion?
Well, that's probably how I got the job. I was an economics major in college, and they needed an economics teacher. I had, oddly enough, the teacher that I had, Mr. Patrick O'Sullivan, taught economics. I had him, and he was an excellent teacher, and him, like, part of the reason why I kind of got into teaching a little bit was I really respected these guys. They were great teachers. They were good, and they were intelligent. And I said, well, okay. And again, they seemed to like they were enjoying their life. It wasn't just like they were doing a job and cashing a check. It meant something to them. They were dedicated people, and that struck a chord with me. And I'm just, so. And I remember, actually, it was Jack Silk, who I think was the vice principal at the time. He was visiting a friend in Rockaway, and I was lifeguarding. And I guess he knew that I was an economics major, and he knew that they were going to need an economics teacher. And, I also took business courses. And I guess I just checked a few of the boxes. And I was lucky enough to be able to assistant swim coach to Billy Lagan.
Yeah.
Who was
Remember
my,
Lagan?
who was my coach.
Yep.
So it was a very unique experience because not only, I was also teaching with people that were my teachers. So Andy Conrad comes to mind. One of the best teachers ever. Jack Silk was a very good teacher.
Silk taught me history. I remember I had Silk.
John
Yeah.
Horan, Tom Jockers.
Yeah.
These were, and I looked up to these guys. They were kind of role models. So that was part of the reason when I saw them and I said, they look like they were happy with their lives. And so that was when, came across my mind to possibly get into it.
So when you graduated and then became a teacher, now was it Talentine or bust, or how did Talentine come back in the mix? Just because,
Like I said, Jack Silk told me
Okay.
that there was a need an economics teacher, so he started talking to me about it. And I thought about it, and then, I just talked about it, and basically, that was it.
okay. While you were in college, when did you decide to be a
It
teacher?
was around junior year. I think between junior and senior year, he mentioned it, and then by senior year, I think in that spring, I kind of contacted him and I said, "Yeah."
Well, how was it like teaching at Talentine, and you're walking around the halls and you see your two younger brothers?
It was somewhat hysterical. I mean, I have to. And at the time, I was still living home, and so we're sitting around the dinner table or whatever, and I'm talking to Richie about swimming and the whole stuff, and I was talking to my brother Billy about the economics or whatever, and so it was a unique situation to say the
Yeah.
least, but it was a great situation because it did, you're also part of their lives, so it's,
Did you ever teach any of them?
Billy, I told Billy
I'm not
economics.
kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny because I marked him harder because I just said you have an unfair advantage because you can ask me any questions.
Oh, that's funny, man. I love that.
I enjoyed teaching, but the salary was a parochial high school.
Yeah.
You could barely make a living. It was $10,000. So I think the salary at that point now was 77, 78. So it was $10,000 a year. Now, so I enjoyed it and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And then, but I think I kind of knew in the back of my mind that you can't do this for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Because it's just not, you can't afford to live on this.
Yeah.
And also there was also constant rumors that the school was going to close, which it did eventually.
Yeah.
And so in the back of my mind, it was basically, okay, do this, enjoy it. You make some great friends. I worked with some great people. But in the back of my mind, I said, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. A woman who I taught with at the time, Mary Beth Hurley, got an interview with General Motors. She told me about it. I said, I guess I should start interviewing just to get some experience. I guess I did okay. Well, actually, it was kind of funny. The interviewer uncle was the uncle of a couple of guys I used to swim with.
There you go.
Saints, and I was just kind of going on the interview more or less. I said I need to get experience. I was kind of looking forward to lifeguarding one more summer, and I just decided. I said, but let me start the process of the interviewing, and I found out, like I said, he was the uncle of guys I used to swim with. By the end of the interview, he says, when do you want to start? And I'm like, oh, Christ, I really hadn't planned on this. So I thought about it for a while, and it basically doubled my salary. And you're working with General Motors, one of the best corporations in the world at the time. So it was kind of like something that I had to do. But I really didn't want to leave at that time, but it was an offer that I couldn't refuse.
So how many years in at GM then?
I worked for GM about 5 years, and they bought a company. General Motors bought a company called Electronic Data Systems. You might have the name Ross Perot.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So then everybody who worked for GM was then transferred to Electronic Data Systems. Different corporation, different culture, different benefits also. And I also saw that the data centers were either in Atlanta, Dallas, or Detroit. And I just said, I just don't see myself moving to Atlanta, Dallas, or Detroit. So I started thinking about, I got to start thinking about And okay, maybe another career. And I was starting to think about another career right away because as much as I enjoyed, I was writing computer programs, and it's good, but it was very, very dry.
Yeah.
It was kind of a funny thing because you were always told you'll know when you grow up, okay, what you want to do. And, that didn't really hit me until the fire department. I mean, I knew that I enjoyed teaching, and it was something to do. It was a job, and I enjoyed it. And then I also knew that after that computers, now keep in mind I'm talking, in the early 80s, there were no PCs even yet, but I knew that computers were a huge future. And so I said, okay, let me see if I can get involved in this industry and stuff. It was good, but I just didn't feel that it was, I was okay with it. I was no Bill Gates. I was no Steve Jobs. I was okay. Yeah. I was okay, but I also said, there's something more to life to do than just this. So a couple of friends I was hanging out with, 1 or 2 firemen. I had uncles who were firemen, and they always seemed to have a good work-life balance. It was they had their jobs which they enjoyed, the firemen, but they also had other things in their life that they enjoyed, family, hobbies, whatever, and that kind of appealed to me. So I just didn't want a job that was going to basically be a check. I wanted it to be something where you got more out of it, more satisfaction. Okay. So I looked into the fire department test was coming up. A close friend of mine said, you ought to consider taking the test. I took the test, and I did okay. And then they called, and I just said, all right, I got to make a decision here.
Yeah.
So I decided to give the fire department a try.
So if GM hadn't moved their plans, would you have stayed there or no?
Who knows?
No.
Because the annoying thing about it was I just started to get a couple of promotions, so I started to make pretty decent money. And of course, when you were going to go back to the fire department, you were taking a significant cut.
Yeah.
And I just said, I think I'm going to give this a try. I said, if I don't like it, I can probably go back to, something in the computer field.
Not everyone is built to run into danger when everyone else is running away. But Jim didn't see it as bravery. He saw it as a duty. The moment he stepped in the firehouse, he knew he was exactly where he belonged.
These firemen, they seem to enjoy their lives. They have, like I said, a good work balance.
Yeah.
They have, and I see a lot of these guys who, are working in the private sector, and, their whole life was just about their job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they didn't necessarily seem happy. They didn't seem like they enjoyed it. Whereas most of the firemen I saw really enjoyed their job. And, that's important, obviously.
Yeah.
You want to enjoy what you're doing. It becomes part of who you are. And clearly that's,
So what year are we looking at, or where were you joining where was your first assignment?
I was assigned initially to 72 engine in Throgs Neck. I lived in the area, and, it was, I met some really good people. I lived in the area, so it was very convenient. And then I was there for a while, and then I think little by little I started hearing people talk about studying for the lieutenant's test, and okay. And then I said, well, I'm going to need a little more seasoning if I'm going to need more experience. So I transferred to a truck company, 17 truck, in 43rd Street in Lois.
Okay, so what year is this now you're looking at?
That was around 93.
93.
Yeah.
A firefighter's job isn't just about putting out fires. It's about trust, about knowing the person next to you will risk everything to save your life. It's about a brotherhood that lasts a lifetime.
here's my story on 9/11. I had worked in the World Trade Center prior, worked at one of the towers, worked at Ford, Short Island. So I'm in LA, so about 6:30 in the morning, I get a phone call. Why is someone calling me 6:30 in the morning? Said, turn the TV on. I turned the TV on, and we saw the footage. My sister worked 5 blocks away from the World Trade Center. So I called her, and there was so much misinformation. She thought, or they thought in that building, that it was a private plane that hit. Right? So I said, okay, because I was supposed to go to New York 2 days later on a Thursday. So then the second plane had hit. I went to call her back, and the phones were dead. Phones have never been dead since I've been around in New York City. You can't. So her phone was dead. I couldn't call my parents. My parents lived up in Washington Heights. So where were you stationed that day?
I was on 39 engine, 67th Street between 3rd and Lex. I remember I was a lieutenant at the time, so I was in the office, and a report came over the PA system that there was a report that a plane had hit the Trade Center. All right, so I turned around and put the TV on in the office, and already you could see they had live footage of the Trade Center, and you saw a large gaping hole in the shape of a plane with thick black smoke pushing out, billowing out. And I guess for political reasons, they were being cautious as to saying what it was. But anybody who in the fire department, 93, knew that they came once to try to blow it, to knock it down. They didn't do it with the terrorists, and they had come back. So it was pretty obvious that what this was, it was terrorism. It was a clear blue crystal sky, not a cloud in the sky. And but they were still, I guess, dancing around the issue whether it was terrorism. It's absurd. So I went downstairs, I got the guys together, and I said, all right, listen, we're going to be called for this any minute now. And, just my thoughts were basically is like, this isn't your run-of-the-mill fire. This, even though any fire in a high-rise building is not run-of-the-mill, but this is something where you just had a fully fueled jet, I don't know what's fueled, but a jet crash into the upper floors of the Trade Center. So, you're kind of outside your box, so to speak. You're like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to get water up there? It's 100 floors up. How are we going to, how are we going to get people out of there? So all these thoughts are running through my head. And, we got there, and I don't know if this is, I'm not supposed to say this or not, but that was rush hour. So the call came in around 8:45, I believe. So it was rush hour. Now we're on 67th Street between 3rd and Lex. We made a couple of rights and left, and now we're heading down 2nd Avenue, and traffic was extremely light. I'm going, this is strange, because I'm going, this was, rush hour, and, getting in around that area wasn't easy. And so I said, okay, this is great. We're going to get down there fast. And then as we made a right on Houston, head across Houston, and that's when the second plane hit. So you saw you didn't see the plane, but you saw, as I looked to the side, I could see the explosion on the upper floors, and I saw the South Tower. Now,
Could you hear it?
I think I more saw it than
Okay.
heard it.
So what happened then?
Made a left on, I believe it's called West Avenue, and we headed down. And when we arrived, I saw, we pulled up, and Chief Gansey was there, was Chief of the Department, and he's a very, experienced, well-loved Chief of the Department. And normally when you pull up to any kind of these fires like this, these chiefs or officers, they're very self-assured. They're very, okay, we know what we're doing. We got this, He did not have that kind of a look in his face, obviously. He had a look of like, this is... and then his aide told me, he said, report to the base of the North Tower, and just watch out that there's people jumping. So there was a pedestrian walkway, which is a little north of there. So we walked under the pedestrian walkway, and we got as far as we could. And then we just kind of looked up, and there's I guess, I don't know, it was 25, 30 yards, whatever, and where I looked up and said, all right, I still had to get into the building. And we just said, all right, let's go. We went in and then reported to the command center, and they said, okay, start walking up stairway B and do what you can. You know, whether it was going to be to stretch that hose line to put the fire out, this is very early in the operation. That's kind of what I was thinking. Or just do what you can to help people, which was obviously there was going to be people in need.
Yeah. So how far up did you get up to the tower? Which was it? The second south?
Well, the North Tower.
North Tower.
Which was the first tower that was hit. South Tower was the second tower that was hit. We walked up to the 31st floor when all of a sudden the building began to shake so much that you couldn't stand up. So any kind of vibration in a building like that, or any kind of a vibration like that, it's a sign of the building is collapsing. Any kind of a building that's on fire is in the process of falling apart, collapsing. Buildings are built to hold, structural columns, beams, everything, put together, hold the building up. So this building started vibrating. I said, okay, this building's coming down. So I said to a chief, happened to be there, and I said, all right, it's time to go. And he got on his handy talking. He was on a command channel, and he said, okay, you confirmed that we're evacuating the building. I didn't find out until later that the vibration, I thought it was the North Tower that was starting to come down. I thought this was the upper floors coming down. I didn't find out until later that the vibration that I felt was the South Tower collapsing. We didn't find out until later. So basically then we just started walking down the building, walking down the stairs as fast as we could, basically. And then we got to the lobby of the building. I did a quick roll call before we went out, and I could look out and I can see that it was a complete whiteout. It looked like, there was a snowstorm or whatever. And we were missing one guy who going down the stairs. And then we went back into the stairs to see if he had stopped. We had passed this Company 6 truck on the way down. They were helping this woman, Josephine. And I thought, okay, maybe he got stuck up with them, so let's go see how he's doing. And as we went back into the stairwell, the building came down. It just came down, straight down. And I'm no engineer, and I have no idea why, but I'm just guessing that the material came down and built up along the sides, and that supported the first, second, third, fourth floor. And so then the building came down, and basically the rest of that stairwell stayed intact. And it was all twisted and contorted, and you heard the building starting to come down. You heard, there's, like I said, we walked back into the lobby. We walked into the stairwell to see where one of the members was, and the vibration started again. Yeah. And then you started to hear the floors come down one on top of the other. And they kind of knew, that, okay, this building's coming down. So I just rolled to the wall, put my in the fetal position, and said a few prayers and said, okay, God, get us out of here. Luckily, he did it. We made it out.
How many men were with you?
There were, one guy kept going, he made it out, and there were 3 guys of my company in the stairwell. There was all of 6 truck. There was another member of 16 engine, Nikki Cross, the woman Josephine, and I think that was it. I might forget, but there was approximately 13, 14 people in that.
So how long were you there for?
We were there for about, my guess is about 5 hours. So
pitch black?
Initially it was very dark and black in the air, and initially it was smoke and dust and everything or whatever. And then so now we're giving maydays. Mayday, trying to get units outside to let them know that we're trapped inside this stairwell. And there was no acknowledgement, no response, and so that was okay. Knowing that, okay, this was a major collapse, and obviously not that we had any doubt, but that there was no units in that area that could come and help us. So, finally, like we're there for hours. I don't know. And little by little, you started to see light come through. We're continuing to give maydays. We're giving mayday. No acknowledgement initially. And you started trying to make sense of exactly what happened. Keep in mind, I didn't know that the whole South Tower was down. I thought this was still just like the upper floors of the North Tower, because you could never say, how could the whole building come down and you still survive? So little by little, the smoke began to clear, the dust began to clear. They acknowledged our maydays, and we told them all, when we told them all location, they was like that, where are you? And I said, we're Stairway B, second, third, fourth floor, North Tower. This was Chief Jonas talking at the time. And when they didn't acknowledge us to where you are, they're like, okay, something's not adding up here. We're in the World Trade Center. They should know exactly where we are.
Yeah.
We are very precise. North Tower, Stairway B, second, third, fourth floor. When there was no acknowledgement as to where we were, you started to put pieces together. Okay, the light started coming in. How is light getting into this stairwell in the middle of the building? Now the dust started to clear. Okay, and that's when you kind of realized that, okay, the whole building is down, and we're just kind of, through the grace of God, or just plain luck, whatever, we survived. Finally, I think Chief Picciata had a bullhorn with him, and he sounded like, so units were trying to come in to find us. Chief Picciata had a bullhorn when we sounded the siren on it, and from that they were able to pinpoint where our location was, and they removed from some of the rubble from the top of that stairs, and then we were able to kind of climb out, drop some ropes up, and we climbed out.
Amazing. So how many hours do you think you were in there?
I think it was about 5 hours, because
Wow.
it came down around 10:30, and I think we got out around 3:30. It didn't seem like that long now, but you look at it, do the math.
I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but do you remember your first thought as you entered the building and you see all the debris and I guess,
When it came
chaos?
out, you mean when it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. That's when it really hit you. The scope of the devastation.
Yeah.
Because keep in mind, we're walking in. Now, granted, both buildings are on fire from plants in the upper floors, but there was still 210-story tower there. Arguably the most expensive real estate in the country.
Yeah.
And now you walk out, and there was just blocks and blocks and blocks of rubble. And so, as far as you could see, you just saw rubble. And then, the challenging part obviously was, okay, you think, okay, you're out of that stairwell, and everything is fine, and you're going to be okay. But now you had to walk through this rubble, up and down beam, and then on top of that, as I was leaving, 7 World Trade was now fully involved.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking by this, and I'm looking and going like, well, if these 2 buildings came down, that's coming down shortly.
Yeah.
And so that was a major concern. Like, okay, don't tell me I've survived the collapse of these 2 buildings. Let's have that one get me. But I want to make it now, thank God.
So when did you get home that night?
I would say about 11. I don't remember. Back to the firehouse finally, and just tried to regroup and figure out, where people were. My firehouse lost 2 people, Rob Curtol and Ray Murphy, and so there were obviously a lot of calls from families where people are, and you don't want to give out any misinformation because you don't know. I mean, I just thought, since this happened to us, I thought, oh, they're going to find there's going to be plenty of people just like us, but there weren't. So that was, it was rough.
So it was reported that your group they were the last firemen out. Is that accurate?
I think they did find, can't swear to it. I'm not sure. I think there might have been one or two that were found in that ballpark later. I'm not sure exactly when, but in the rubble. Yeah.
Who was your first phone call that you made?
I called Kathleen. Here's
Okay.
this, yeah. Yeah, I remember Joe Buchanan gave me the phone. Friend of mine, and it was emotional.
Well, incredible story. What you guys did, the ones that lived, the ones that didn't. We have mutual friends like students that passed away
Of course.
in my grade.
Sure.
You have it. So,
Sure.
we all have a connection, but you were really in it. And, God bless it. You made it out, Jim.
Thank you. And, it's, there is, I believe somewhere in the area of 3,000 people died in that collapse. And, it's in the, I think it's the worst day in the history of the country. I think Pearl Harbor was, 2,000. I think there was more. But anyway, it's not just those 3,000 people. Those are 3,000 fathers, mothers, kids. And so the ripple effect of that is there were 3,000 mothers or fathers that died. Now those kids of these, they don't have that mother or father to guide them. They're not there for their birthdays. They're not there for their Christmas. They're not there for their holidays. And, that's, something when the dimension of the tragedy is just like mind-boggling because, and then of course now even there's 9/11 related illnesses. People are getting cancer at very much higher rates. And, anybody who is in that has that spectral, of their head of okay, is this eventually going to get me or is it not? So, you try to realize how, like I say, myself, how lucky I was to survive that and try to, just, I guess, try to appreciate life, try to do a better job, just, because not everybody has this opportunity.
Firefighters are trained to go in to save lives. It's a difficult job. The decision-making under pressure, along with physical and emotional stress. We look at them as heroes, and that can't be an easy thing to live up to.
Everybody knows what they have to do. You're not, it's okay, you do this. In general you are, but everybody knows their job.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell people what to do. And people want, as a chief, I can tell you. So my brother says to me, Billy, one day he says, so it must be harder now. You're a chief and you have to order people to do. And so, well, a little of that, but not that much. He says, well, what are you talking about? I says, well, people know what they're doing and people know what they have to do. And, you basically just check on them with a handy talk. Yeah, how you doing? How you doing? But everybody knows what their job is. And he says, so he said, that's pretty good. I said, so what's the hardest part of your job? And as a chief, I said, I thought about it for a second. I said, well, the hardest thing probably is holding people back. And he says, what do you mean? He says, because you don't want people to overextend themselves. You don't want, you risk a life to save a life. And you risk your life to save property within certain boundaries. After that property is no longer, it is no longer salvageable, or the property is putting you at risk, you pull people back and you say, get out of the building, get out, it's time to go. And very often they don't want to, they want to put the fire out. So he says, so the hardest part of your job, is to hold people back. And I said, yeah, because that's an amazing job you have. And I said, you're right, it is.
Not everyone can be a firefighter. It's not about toughness or being fearless. It's about mindset. It's about commitment. It's about having the heart to serve, even when it means putting yourself second. Jim didn't just fight fires. He shaped the future of the fire department. From fireman all the way to battalion chief, he rose through the ranks not for the title, but to guide those who came after him.
I retired in 2019.
Okay. How many years in?
33 and change, something like that.
Congratulations. Thank you. And ironically, you went home. You went home again.
You mean to the Bronx?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You retired back to
That
the
was
Bronx.
special. That was, that was, it wasn't planned, but it worked out well. It worked out. I couldn't have asked for a better house to retire out of. My last house, Battalion 15, 63 engine, and 39 truck. And as a matter of fact, one of the guys tomorrow, Ryan O'Neill, is getting promoted to lieutenant. So we're all going down and
Standing.
yeah. And that you take that with you for the rest of your life. So I would advise anybody to take it, and it's a great job, and you're gonna make the best friends. And there is danger involved. Clearly, it's a dangerous job. You have to factor that in.
When living your everyday life, you get the calling, don't ignore it. The world needs people willing to make that sacrifice, to protect others. And if that's you, then answer the call.
So we're sitting here having a couple pints in Terrytown in Sleepy Hollow. What would you say to a young man, a young woman who came up and sat right over there next to us and said, I want to join the fire department? What advice would you give?
I would say it's without a doubt the best job in the world. Not everybody has this opportunity.
Yeah.
It requires that you have to apply yourself, and you have to learn your job. But the rewards, I remember a guy, one of my lieutenants said, the more you put into this job, the better, the more you'll like it. Apply yourself, learn your job, be good at your job, and it's the most rewarding job you can ever have.
Even after hanging up the uniform, a firefighter's calling never really fades, but his impact lives on in the lives he's saved, and in the first responders he's mentored, and in the legacy he's left behind.